Hi there, greetings friends. Welcome here to Rock Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here today to do episode 3 of the mini-series that I'm running on Jethro Tull and Pink Floyd. The original series I did on Genesis and Yes translated into this. Somebody suggested these two bands, so that's why we're doing this. So the topic for today is Magnus Opus. Many consider these two albums to be their best albums by both bands. Jethro Tull's Aqualung, released in 1971. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, released in 1973. So both of these are absolutely killer albums, filled with fantastic stuff. They're almost both perfection in many ways, almost perfect albums. And they've grown on me too, because initially, especially with the Jethro Tull one, I didn't initially like it too much. Mostly because of the song Aqualung, which got overplayed on the radio when I was younger, and I thought I didn't really understand it, and I thought it was kind of a weird track, and I thought they were kind of a weird band. And it kept me from getting involved with this band for almost 20 years. And pretty much the same story with Pink Floyd. I didn't really like The Wall. I thought it was overrated. It seemed kind of simplistic in some ways and just weird altogether. And I just never got into Pink Floyd because of that album. I picked this up at a yard sale in the end of the century, 99 or 2000, somewhere in that time period. And Pink Floyd took off from this. But initially, I didn't care much for this either. It took a little bit of listening to it, and then I really liked it. So both bands had a kind of similar history that way, and both of them have these two albums, which initially didn't hit me very well, but eventually became absolutely killer albums. Both of them are now masterpieces for me. We'll talk a little bit about Jethro Tull first. So Aqualung, of course, is by many standards considered their best album. But Jethro Tull has so many different eras of their music, and so many different groupings of people playing, that, some people from the later stuff who like some of the later stuff don't really care for this as much. Some people like Thick as a Brick more because to them that's an ultimate concept album. But this is still a really good album. Artwork here is really good as well on this album. The song, I now understand what they were trying to get at with the song, so I've actually kind of come to appreciate it more. But there are many tracks on this album that I think are absolutely top shelf Jethro Tull songs. Cross-Eyed Mary, of course. Mother Goose, one of my favorite Jethro Tull songs of all time. Wondering Aloud, I think it's kind of a weird song, but I like it. Up to Me, another good one. My God, which I think is absolutely killer. And then you have some of the bigger stuff like Locomotive Breath and Aqualung, which I think are both really solid songs that you get a lot of play for on the radio. Wind Up was for a long time my favorite song on this album, and it's just such a mix of good stuff. And for some people think this is kind of a concept album, although I believe Ian Anderson has come out and stated that it wasn't intended as a concept album. There are some songs that kind of are similar and tie the album together a bit. So maybe that's why people thought that. But overall, this to me is a absolutely great album and deserves to be their Magnus Opus. I'm not going to complain about it. And then this one, of course, maybe even bigger, maybe even more of a Magnus Opus than that one. There doesn't seem to be much dispute among Pink Floyd fans that this is the absolute best album. Yeah, there are a few people that consider The Wall the big album. Some of them actually like Animals more. I'm one of them, but generally speaking, this by most standards is considered an absolute perfect album. I think it sold over 40 million copies too. It's one of the biggest selling albums in history. Every song on here is fantastic. Definitely has that concept feel to it. Whether it was or not, I'm not really sure. I think it's just talking about life in general. But there's just about every tune on here is killer. Breathe, of course, Time, Money, The Great Gig in the Sky, Us and Them, Eclipse, Brain Damage. There's no really bad tracks on this album, and I like the cover as well, although the original cover I think is better than this one, but still really good. For its time period, excellent album. This is their 8th studio album. I think this one is actually, if I'm wrong, I think this is Jethro Tull's 4th studio album. But both fantastic albums. If you're coming into this band, either of these bands, you want to own these albums. These are almost like must-own albums. If you want to start out, you're getting into Jethro Tull, this is a must-own. You're getting into Pink Floyd, this is a must-own. So there's your Magnus opuses for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the mini-series Jethro Tull and Pink Floyd. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe and put your comments down below in the comments section, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss episode 4, which will come out. This will come out tomorrow. That'll come out the day after. So take care and have yourself a good night. Goodbye.